Making an inexpensive film doesn't always mean making a cheap one. This week, we are talking indie film production on a budget without looking cheap. Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I am Chuck. Today is part 2 in our inexpensive versus cheap series. Building on our pre-production points from last week, this week we're going to be talking about production, which is basically just collecting audio and video assets on your film set.
So we will be assuming that you have already figured out your cast, crew, equipment, and set your shot list.
And we want to start with proving the point that just because you have a large budget or just because you have a bunch of expensive equipment, that does not necessarily mean you're going to have a solid film. You can still make something that looks cheap. Case in point, 1997 Batman and Robin is a cheap-looking movie.
Ooh, additional case in point, Cats.
All right, should we start with Batman and Robin?
Yes, please.
I hope I inflamed or incensed a lot of people out there. No, just kidding.
Oh, no, that movie just has like the best little spot in my little girl heart. Well, I'm excited to hear you just tear this movie apart.
Well, I don't want to tear it apart too much. It's really entertaining, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, his jokes throughout all the puns that he makes about cold stuff.
Yes.
It's a great drinking game. It came out when I was a kid, so I didn't quite understand the importance of the drinking game nature. I guess I would have been 15 at the time when it came out, but I don't know if I would have been able to sneak that much booze out of my parents'
Your parents
fridge.
would have noticed.
Yeah, they would have noticed. They would have been like, "You're playing drinking games. You're playing the pun game to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Batman and Robin, aren't you? You're gonna have to restock our fridge." But I just want to point out that to me, that movie looks cheap. A lot of the shots are done on like studio sets, and for some reason, the costumes kind of have this uncanny valley nature to them, in my opinion. It almost looks like the most expensive costumes that you can buy at Spirit Halloween.
Which, by the way, is still very expensive. Some of those costumes are outrageously priced.
For sure. But their budget was $125 million.
Jesus.
And in 1997, I didn't realize this, like in 30 years, because of inflation, that would equate to about $250 million.
100% inflation.
Yeah, it's just doubled.
That's a larger topic than we'll be covering in this podcast.
Exactly.
Moving along.
And probably a good chunk of that is the last 5. But yeah, I just want to point out to everybody that, having a huge amount of budget doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make something that looks that awesome. I think, you can argue that Batman and Robin was kind of cool looking, but like in Mr. Freeze's lair and when he's like freezing things,
it looks the ray gun, the freeze gun, right?
Yeah, his freeze gun. Like it just, in the background, you look at like the ice and stuff, and there's that one scene where they're playing hockey with a diamond, and it just looks like it's shot on a studio.
About that.
Yeah, and the other example I can point out is like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull one after the trilogy.
Oh, yeah. I did not see that one.
The Alien one, that was all shot on studio sets, and obviously they blew a lot of money on that movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was for. Probably salaries for actors and things like that. But you can still have a cheap looking film.
You can. I would like to emphasize Cats.
Okay.
Not the animal, the movie.
Nice.
From 2019.
That was a really horrible looking movie.
That one was a rough one. So the budget was $95 million. And that does not include their marketing budget, which I think we can all agree was
pretty high.
Yeah, too much for what that movie was.
Nice.
So
2019. I didn't realize it was that recent.
That was right before the pandemic. Because it's got like Taylor Swift and Idris Elba and like a bunch of really popular people in it.
I think I shut it off. I think I started it and shut it off.
That was probably the best decision you could have made. Well, they had to release a whole new version of it after opening weekend because the animation for the fur wasn't actually done yet. So the studio actually had to re-release the movie after opening weekend, because they were just refusing to move the date.
Did they just use like cartoon fur? I
didn't see it opening weekend, so I cannot attest to this, but I heard very terrible, very concerning things about it. The whole thing was a nightmare. But I really want to emphasize this little difference here. So the movie is based on the Broadway musical.
Yeah.
And the Broadway musical opened in 1982. When it opened, it had a production budget of $4 million.
Yeah.
Now, even if you were to adjust that for inflation for today's standards, that's only $11 million.
Okay.
And that's still 1/10 of the budget of the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you, I'd rather see the Broadway production. I mean, it's still Cats, so I don't know 100% if I'd want to see it. Want might be a strong word there, but I would much rather see the Broadway production than the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is you could probably figure out a drinking game for the movie and then just watch it at home.
Anytime something nonsensical happens.
Yes, you wouldn't make it to the end. You'd be passed out
you
on the
would
couch.
die. I don't think you'd make it through Act 1.
I'd like to point out a counterexample too of budget versus, looking cheap. Mad Max, 1979.
Oh yeah,
and
the original.
I thought the original Mad Max looked pretty cool. They made some creative decisions in that, right?
Yeah.
They decked out the cars, they gave people outfits, and they decided that, the apocalypse is going to be in a desertscape.
Because why wouldn't it be?
So art department looked great, but their budget was $350,000. And so that equates to 1.5 to 2 million in that range. In today's money.
Okay.
But,
which is your average
pocket change.
Indie film budget, right?
Yeah. Well, quote unquote indie film. But I know a lot of you out there are shooting for a lot less than that budget and still getting things done.
We would love a quarter of that budget.
Yeah.
Most of us could finance our films with a quarter of that budget.
Yeah,
and they would look great.
Yeah, 6 figures would be amazing. But and that's the thing is I think a lot of us indie filmmakers out there have learned that if you're going to have something look good, you need to just be working within your skill set.
Yeah.
And not extending yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of us too have made mistakes. And one of the glaring ones that I have that you can actually find on Lower Gentry Studios YouTube channel, it's called Canyon County is the name of the web series that we released. And we filmed it all at once and then released it. I think it was like once a week or once a month we released the episodes. But we were kind of just biting off more than we could chew. And me specifically with the audio.
Oh,
because we had to ADR so much of that audio. And I didn't know exactly how to get sound in windy environments, in loud environments. And it was a mess, but I did get a lesson in Foley and ADR in that. But you can definitely tell the scenes that were just MOS.
Yeah.
So it was pretty rough.
But you've learned so much since then too. So I mean, you took the lessons
for sure.
But also, not.
Do you have an example of something that you totally screwed up by biting off more than you can chew?
Yeah, and this one
it ends up looking or sounding cheap.
It was for one of those 48-hour film festivals. It's called I-48 here because it's in Idaho.
Yeah.
This one was specifically called Headshot.
Okay.
So we got action flick. I was in high school.
Nice.
Therefore, the majority of our lead actors are all in high school, and our camera ops and everything are high schoolers.
Right
but
on.
we did get a few of our teachers to agree to come act with us, which was awesome. My dad was very kind and volunteered his office. I still don't know if he got permission to do that per se. So maybe we'll keep that a little hush-hush.
Oh.
But
how many years ago? I think you're fine.
yeah, right. Statute of limitations has got to be over for trespassing on that one. Anyway,
sure.
So we had this great environment. Like the set looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the adults are actually good actors because they were, theater teachers.
Okay, that's nice.
And being an action flick, of course, we wanted to be like spy and espionage, and we're in this office, so let's do it. Even though the only costumes we had access to were hospital scrubs, and all of our lead actors were still high schoolers. And yes, you can tell a difference on camera between a high school student and a fully grown adult. They don't look like they would be working together. That doesn't look normal. It never looks normal.
You just do the CW thing, and all the PhDs and doctors are like 23.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
No, I think
I'm talking about The Flash. If you've ever seen that one, that's great.
I assume that.
Yeah.
You don't just have to be talking about The Flash.
They all look like high schoolers,
CW did it with a lot of shows.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not the only one. But what makes me so angry is looking back on it now. We could have set this in like a hospital or a mental institution or some sort of something like that, where all the high schoolers would be in scrubs and their patients, and we had hallways and classic break rooms and stuff. We had everything to make it work for that, but we were just so adamant about doing spy espionage in an office that we didn't even think to creatively film in the hallways and stairwells and places where it could have also been a hospital.
Oh.
We were so stuck on the idea, and I'm so mad about it because maybe then it could have been a passable film.
Nice. Adaptability is super important.
It's very important. And I did not have that in high school, obviously.
Our first gunshot scene, we decided to try to show it on camera, but we had no idea how to do a gunshot and have blood.
Oh, like a squib?
Yeah, we didn't know. We had no idea how to do that, so we had like tubing going behind the actor's head, and then we didn't shoot for the cut either. Where it's like, if you want to show a gunshot, show
the
cut.
gun.
Yeah, show the gun and the firing, and then cut. And we tried to speed them up, dropping out of frame, but it's like we were just working outside.
You just made the person fall.
Yeah, we just sped up the fall. Oh, yeah, it looked pretty rough, but that's how you learn. That's how you learn things.
Now you know how to not film that. Now you know.
Should we talk about some red and green flags about production?
I think we should.
We came up with some examples here. The first one is, we'll talk about a cinematographer, right?
Yes.
You receive a demo reel from a cinematographer. The footage looks gorgeous. You ask about shot listing, and they respond they prefer to feel things out on the day of the shoot. Is that a red flag or a green flag?
I'm assuming that since there is no shot list, there's also no storyboard, like neither. So I'm going to say red flag. There needs to be, I am all for flexibility and adjusting on set, but you got to do some pre-production.
Absolutely. It's good to feel things out for sure, but you kind of want to have a baseline of what you want.
Yeah.
And then the only caveat I would say is that I do have some friends that have turned out some decent short films that they just kind of like go and on the day figure things out. No script. But the thing is you want to have a cinematographer that you've worked with before, location sound recorders that you've worked with before,
actors that you trust,
actors that know how to improvise, and be able to capture all of that stuff and trust yourself in the edit.
And I think going into it, being excited about improv and trying something new and just playing is very, very different from, well, we have this movie we have to shoot and we only have so many days on location to shoot it.
Yeah, for sure. But I do encourage everybody to go out and play with those types of things.
Oh, yeah. Don't let pre-production stop you from doing something if that's the only way you're going to do it.
Yeah, but if you have a script that's going to be tricky to execute, you want to put the plan in ahead of time.
You do. Yeah. Okay. All right. I have a situation for you. You are either acting or on crew for a set.
Yeah.
There was something with the previous shot that could have been improved. So you ask the director for another take, and their response is no.
I think that's a red flag.
I feel like that's a red flag.
Yeah, I think there's also the situation where if you're running behind, at some point you're going to have to move on.
If it was the AD saying no, I would say green flag because that means your AD really cares about this schedule.
Yep.
If it's the director being like, no, absolutely not, I don't give a what you think, then
red flag for sure.
Especially if it's the sound person.
Sound person. Directors, please listen to your sound people because I've had to fix so many sound issues in post, and I imagine it's because the director did not want to do another take when the plane was flying overhead or when the truck was driving by, and it just destroyed the dialogue. So, yeah, definitely listen to your cast and crew.
Yeah. And I get it. Some directors want to have that creative control and they have that specific vision. They're like, no, that was exactly what I wanted. I got it. But at the same time, I mean, if you have the time in the schedule and at least one person is saying, no, I want to do more.
Yeah, listen to them if you can.
Yeah. Unless it's just an actor that did not bother to learn their lines and they're like, wait, no, I can get it better next time. And it's like, no, it's fine. It's never going to be better. Just
that one's coming up here in a second. But so here's a red or green flag for you.
Okay.
You see a boom operator without headphones on.
You say as if I've never been a boom op with no headphones on.
And I have seen that on set.
I know. I know it's supposed to be a red flag, but I also know I've literally done that. And that's why people should not ask me to be a boom op.
Yeah.
I'm not a good one because I won't wear headphones. No, I just forgot them and nobody had a pair. So we just got to roll with it. And I just got to stand by the monitor and see if the lines were ticking up and hope that meant we were capturing the
Nice.
audio.
I always keep a set of earbuds even in my camera kit bag. And then that way, because I've been on sets before where it's like, we don't have headphones and I'm just terrified of that situation all the time.
No, it's
even
valid.
if it's not my responsibility
Yeah.
to do location sound. If I haven't met the location sound recordist, I always have headphones on me, and just those earbuds that you can roll up and throw in a bag somewhere.
And they're super easy to just like wipe off with a disinfecting wipe if somebody's like concerned or whatever. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, that's nice
for sure. Ear diseases that spread by
I just
earwax.
don't want to shove.
Earbuds are definitely gross. I would not use somebody else's earbuds.
Well, I'm talking about the really cheap ones.
Oh yeah,
the like airplanes hand out where
those
there's
are nice.
nothing that goes up in your ear or anything.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? They kind of just sit right at the. I don't know ear anatomy very well, so I'm going to stop trying to describe this because I have headphones on, so it's not like I can even show.
Yeah.
Either way,
it's a podcast.
Yes, that is supposed to be a red flag. And in my defense, I did go out and buy a new set of headphones, and it does live in my camera bag now.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so have headphones on.
I've
you.
learned.
Please.
And they are over-ear headphones, so that way other people won't feel scared to use them if they need them.
Oh, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it, for sure.
I like to keep things clean. Okay. You are directing and running a rehearsal. One of the actors continually delivers lines that aren't exactly what's written on the page. You ask if they'll be off book before the shoot, and they respond, I really like to feel the lines as they come.
Nice. Red flag.
It depends. Did the actor write it?
Oh, I don't know. I think the director wrote it. I don't know. Good question.
No, I'm going to say red flag.
Yeah.
I'm also going to say maybe not for self-tapes, though.
Okay. What is that?
I feel like for self-tapes, it's more important to show what you're going to do with the character than to necessarily verbatim have the script down. And maybe that's why I don't get cast in more things. But okay. I do think that...
So you're giving yourself an exception to this?
No, I'm just saying
yeah.
I've heard that a lot from other actors too, where yes, it is important to get the lines as close as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And for some things like Shakespeare, it's going to be very noticeable if you don't know the line.
Oh, good point.
And
don't
you're going to screw
throw off
it
that
up.
Iambic pentameter. That would be a disaster.
Don't throw that off. There's also like a bunch of rhyming couplet moments. And then also the language is very specific. So if you throw out something like toaster oven when you meant to say the fire pit,
yeah,
I don't know if toaster oven's really going to fit if it's a period Shakespeare piece, you know? Like,
yeah, for sure. Usually Shakespeare's word for word.
Usually.
I would imagine.
But I feel like there's a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah.
In your self-tapes, if you're an actor, or correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, feel free.
Yeah.
It's more important to create a character you're excited to show and play and get it as close as you can to verbatim than it is to be exactly verbatim if it's screwing up your ability to form the character. Because that's how you're going to perform it anyway. Mm-hmm. So like,
but then
you should be presenting what you're going to bring to the table.
There's a difference between having input as an actor and then just disregarding the script.
Yes. And it's also the difference of if you've made a character choice where maybe you don't enunciate all the words so they kind of slur together. So if it's in the script as it is important and you say it's important.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more what I'm talking about as opposed to saying, no, it's not important at all when the line is it is important. Verbatim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying change everything. I'm saying if it's not verbatim.
Okay.
If you conjugate words.
I think most people are going to be cool with that. I'm talking about examples that, sometimes actors will be like, nah, I'm just going to do this line differently. And, maybe they haven't gotten off book.
Oh, no,
right?
That feels very different.
Okay. I feel like an actor's number one job is to be off book. Like that's basically the baseline of everything. If there's a script. What do you think?
That's hard. I don't know, because I feel like, and this is a little bit of a tangent, right? But I feel like the actor's job is to create a character and like bring this character to life and tell their story in a genuine, meaningful way.
For sure. I think that goes along with like memorizing the lines.
Yeah.
Though. They have to do it within
the realms of the world that this writer has built.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
you don't just get to take this character on a completely different ride. You can't just put an
actor in a box, but we're going to put you in a box.
Okay.
Let's talk about fixing things on production or lessons that we've learned on productions.
Yes.
That have helped us basically execute. You executed The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands. That looks great. Dive looks great.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of Stockton to Table Rock.
Rightfully so.
And the Chit Chat series was on
stellar.
It evolved, and that was fun. That was the web series that we shot one episode a month for a year, and you could see the evolution happening there.
Yeah, which is cool.
and us learning to work within our strengths.
Yeah.
As a crew and then the returning cast members. So,
but also some experimentation and where you're excited to play and try new things. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and not experimenting too much. So let's talk about some of the things to consider when you are on set.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of dichotomies here, right?
Okay.
Adaptability versus rigidness. Right, you want to be adaptable on set versus rigid.
Yes.
And there's one example I have here that I looked up that was The Irishman. Scorsese's The Irishman famously has really weird looking de-aging CGI on the actors.
Yeah.
And so what I found out was that one of the issues was that they didn't put the virtual effects masks on like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. So they refused to wear the masks because they thought it would negatively affect their acting performances.
Oh, I do get that. Like, if you're not a character actor in that style, like you're not used to being a mascot kind of thing.
Yeah. But then it ends up making it look worse. Like it added work to it, and I don't know. I just thought that was one of those.
I don't know how some of those artists then at that point would kind of line up some of the effects, and like when you have to like minimize wrinkles and stuff, you're doing that very manually all of a sudden without having those computer automated points to tell you what gets tucked or lifted or moved.
It would be a lot of work, and then there was also the fact that they're older and they just didn't move in a young way if you just watch them.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know, the scenes where they're throwing
can't.
punches, it's like that looks like a de-aged 75-year-old man throwing a punch. And I think adaptability...
Don't get me wrong. 75-year-old man who has access to all of the top medical, physical therapy, all sorts of treatments and stuff to make them as young as possible.
Yeah.
But
there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was a little bit rigid. And correct me if I'm wrong. Make a comment if you think if I'm overanalyzing that.
Because obviously you want to be true to the artist's vision, but that includes the actors as well. And especially if these are characters they've sort of helped craft and create, then I understand wanting to be a part of that. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one then is creative problem solving versus the sunk cost fallacy.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorites.
It is.
Because I fall for this all the time.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with the sunk cost fallacy is...
the idea that sometimes it is better to just walk away instead of saying, but I've already spent all this time, energy, money, effort, whatever, on this one thing. I have to make it work or else everything I've done so far is wasted. And it's not. Because you probably did learn some things along the way, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But it's never too late to pivot and change. And I think my favorite example of this is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay.
The animated movie.
Yeah.
Because they made the movie. And they released bits and pieces of it and some trailer stuff. And fans were pissed.
Okay.
Fans were very upset. It was not okay. Nobody wanted this. This was the Sonic the Hedgehog nobody asked for. And they went back and reanimated it.
Oh, nice.
They knew we screwed up. We need to fix this.
That's cool.
So I say good for them. I don't think they fixed everything that was wrong with the movie. But you know what? They listened to the fans and said, yep, we know we spent this much money already, but we got to fix it.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So they didn't go into the sunk cost. They did
not.
They
did not.
They problem solved it.
They did.
So I want to talk about punctuality versus tardiness.
Yes.
And obviously you want to be punctual on a film set.
Usually. Typically.
And that really helps you get things across the finish line. And there's like punctuality through every single step, I feel like. Right? Obviously showing up on set on time, making sure that you're organizing rehearsals, making sure that you're hitting deadlines at every step of the way, you know, from pre-production till you finish your film. One example that I found online that was interesting, I don't know if you've heard of the Bill Murray Groundhog's Day fiasco.
I know that it's a delightful film and Bill Murray is just a delightfully irreverent person.
Yeah. Well, I guess he was just consistently late to set.
Oh.
And that's when his relationship with Harold Ramis fell apart.
Oh.
And that's the Egon from the Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Because he directed Groundhog's Day. I can't remember if he wrote it, but he directed it.
And I don't think I knew that he directed that.
Yeah, Bill Murray was a pain on the set the entire time. And so, yeah.
That's so sad.
It's like you want to show up for people.
Yeah.
When you're on an indie film set.
Yeah.
Everybody's usually donating, working extra because the budget isn't there.
No, so there's definitely more than one hat in your closet that you got to be wearing from day to day.
And so you want to just respect everybody's time.
Yeah, you want to show up and let everyone know that they are valued.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too, like running over on set. You don't want to be too late, and that's
it's hard. It's so hard too.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you do just fall behind, and it's not out of disrespect for people's time. It's just we didn't budget something right, or this was a new type of thing, or something didn't go quite according to plan. But you do need to kind of own it, and at some point you got to know when to just be like, okay, we do need to call it for today. We're gonna have to do pickups. Mm-hmm. We just need to call it for the day.
Hope for the best. Yeah.
Okay. The last one is listen or listening versus talking, I guess. And it's more about being open to hearing multiple ideas and not just specifically compromising with your own personal motivations in mind, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the example for this one, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I found Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Famous movie.
Rather well known.
Rob Reiner. And so apparently Mad Max, the miracle worker, or Miracle Max, not Mad Max, sorry.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I didn't know these movies had anything to do with each other. Oh my gosh, tell me more. Okay,
no,
all right, never mind.
I'm just misspeaking. But so Billy Crystal's character, Miracle Max in Princess Bride, basically all of his dialogue was improvised.
Oh.
And Rob Reiner gave him free rein to do that.
Bold choice.
Yes, and it ended up being like one of the most memorable characters in the movie. And so he did allow that flexibility on set. He wasn't just telling everybody what they needed to do or what they needed to say or where their mark was. It was let's experiment. Let's see what happens.
Let's play. But I bet that means they booked a little bit of extra time into the schedule to allow for more takes for some of those scenes, just to make sure that they were
a benefit of a large production.
Well, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then to kind of summarize that, some of the best tips as far as production goes for your film, despite it being low budget, but some of the best ways to keep it from looking cheap are to emphasize your oh boy, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Are to emphasize your adaptability over your rigidity.
Yeah.
To focus on creative problem solving and kind of walking away from the sunk cost fallacy.
Yep.
To emphasize punctuality.
Yep.
And avoid being late and running behind on things. And being open to listening versus just talking.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I think that's pretty solid.
I think those feel like very reasonable ways on a set to make some adjustments and make sure things are going to go as smoothly as possible.
And I feel like adaptability is one of the largest ones.
Yeah, I think that's up there at the top for a reason.
Yeah, it encompasses making sure that you're listening, making sure that you're on time, and making sure, what was the other point on there? Now I totally forgot. But making sure that you're being creative, right?
Yeah.
You want to adapt, and you want to use the tools that you have available to you, and including your skill sets, to make sure that your film is not looking and sounding bad.
Exactly.
And like I have an example. Go ahead. Continue.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say one of the first projects I ever made with my brother, it's on YouTube, I believe. It's 2-man crew, all one word. And we actually ended up winning a prize at a 48-hour film festival, and we shot it on a mini DV cam, and we used the audio on the camera.
Bold choice.
Yes, and it did look bad, and it sounded bad. But the thing is, we made it a documentary about 2 pretentious people that are trying to make a film with only 2 people on the crew.
Oh, so this is just a movie about you and your brother.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. Just 2 pretentious people making films.
Absolutely not. You 2 are 2 of the least pretentious people I know.
I don't know about that. But, I mean, I literally have a podcast where I espouse advice to people. So.
And it's not even your first one.
You can't call me the least pretentious. But working within that, we realized that we wanted to make a film. This was our first foray into doing anything, really.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, okay, if it's going to look bad and it's going to sound bad, how do we cover that? Almost like Blair Witch Project.
Yeah,
right?
They leaned into it.
Yeah, or Paranormal Activity 1 through 57.
Yeah.
Because they make a new one every month, I think. because all they need to do is just make a movie from somebody's Ring cam.
And that's it. And now you can. And now I hear that Ring is going to start sponsoring the movies.
Oh, perfect.
No, I'm kidding. That is a complete lie. Actually, it would be really funny if they did, but I'm pretty sure that's a lie I just made up.
Catch your ghosts.
But,
I like it.
But along those lines, same thing for The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands.
Yeah.
We had a scene where somebody was supposed to kind of throw them, he was supposed to hang himself.
Okay.
And so he was supposed to throw himself over this railing at the edge of, it was sort of a loft in an apartment.
Okay.
And the bedroom was in the loft. And so he was going to stand up and throw himself over the edge. And we were very unprepared on just how high off the ground this was.
Okay.
And we realized there's no physical way that we can do this, and the padding that we have is not going to be enough to keep this person safe when he falls. And you know what? So we had a great sound location recordist and post mixer, Nick Fry.
Yeah.
And we sat down and talked with him about some creative ways to brainstorm around this, and we decided to just lean into the sound for it.
Yeah.
So what we would do is cut to black, but you would hear him hanging, and that's when we would bring up the title card anyway, because it was all part of the opening sequence. And I'm like, perfect. That's what we can do, and we can edit it that way, and it'll look very neat and clean.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And it doesn't require throwing somebody over what is essentially a story and a half level of a fall, because it was a taller loft than we realized. It was very tall.
Nice.
So I'm glad that everyone survived that shoot. That was important.
But that is important.
That's important.
Yeah.
But nobody was so stuck on, well, we have to do it this way. We have to find a way.
Yeah.
It didn't come down to that. It came down to,
It's like, this is the story beat.
yes.
How can we execute this within our budget and within our skill set?
Yes.
And the skill set thing is one of the most important things if
Yes.
you're just getting started, or you're transitioning from working with a giant crew, maybe on commercial projects, to filming your own things, and you can only afford to have a couple people on. It's like, well, can't afford a stunt coordinator here, so what are you going to do? You can do a lot of stuff with sound effects.
You can do so much with sound design, and I stand firmly by that's one of my favorite things to play with, especially now. And I wonder if it started on that movie, and now that I'm thinking about it more, maybe it did. But I just love it because your imagination and your mind is so much more creative than anything you could ever show on film.
Yeah.
And it's so personal to you as a viewer that you can do so much wild stuff with just sound design. It's cool.
Yeah, you actually just reminded me of the famous Spanish film See Inside, Mar Adentro. Javier Bardem is the star of that one.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's a true story about a Spaniard that was trying to get the okay from the government to kill himself because he was crippled from the neck down. But there's a scene in there where he has flashbacks to how he broke his neck when he dove into like a pool that didn't have enough, not a pool, but like he was on the coast. He dove into the ocean. But what they did was they just showed Javier Bardem diving, and then they cut into a very close up of him like moving into like the bottom of the ocean, and you could see his head move, but it wasn't that fast. They probably just sped up the tape and then had like really gnarly sound effects of like a crunching noise, and then that was the history of him having broken his neck.
Oh, goodness.
Great film. Really
and
interesting
great way
movie.
to lean into sound design for something like that you obviously don't want to actually have somebody break their neck.
No.
So.
Definitely, it's not. This is not Deliverance. If you don't know what we're talking about, listen to last week's episode.
Not last week. That was
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Deliverance. Yeah.
Time has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, that was
very exciting.
Crazy set to be on, I guess. No, not that we know. Should we go ahead and move on to our Filmmaker of the Week this week?
Yeah, I think
I'm excited about this. So this week's Filmmaker of the Week is Frank Merle, but he actually just recorded an audio message.
Which is something you can do too if you would like to be featured Filmmaker of the Week, and maybe you don't want us to do an impersonation of you.
Yeah.
And inevitably a very poor impersonation of you. Anyway.
We'll just let you do it yourself. Here's Frank.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we actually watched that film.
Yeah, it's streaming on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Jamie Kennedy's in it.
Which is wild. It's also got David Howard Thornton, who, if you know the Terrifier series, he plays Art the Clown in the Terrifier series.
Yeah.
And don't worry, he plays a creeper in Namaka as well.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you're interested in a combination of Jamie Kennedy and vacation footage, because Frank was able to weave vacation footage of Hawaii into his film.
It's a very new take on the found footage style.
Yeah.
But if you watch it, you'll see it. They bring it all into the plot. It's a really cool, interesting thing. And Frank, thanks for the lesson in tenacity.
Yeah.
Because
don't give up on your script.
Yeah. Not everything works out exactly the way you expect it to, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work out.
That's adaptability right there.
That is adaptability. Good call.
Don't just push forward. If something doesn't feel right, you can always shelve your script. You can work on something else in the meantime.
Yeah.
You know.
But you can also repurpose story beats and things.
Yes, and grab it and put it into your next film. So,
exactly.
And if you want to be a featured filmmaker of the week, just go to indiefilmpodcast.com/submit. And you can take a look and fill out our little form there.
Yeah.
And upload some assets, record a voice memo. That would be great.
Yeah.
And you might get picked to be featured on our podcast.
Which would be really fun, because we're excited to get to talk more about all the people that also make indie films. Because you've heard us talk a lot about all the indie films we've made.
For sure. All right. Well, on that note, shall we succinctly say farewell?
I think that sounds wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.